Nansingonya amabagi si baba si suningonya ma Nansingonya amabagi si baba si Carl!
Wait, what?
What are you doing?
Sorry, I was just, testing the, camera and stuff. Just testing it.
Get out of the way!
Sorry. Sorry.
Hi, welcome to episode 5 of Living as Nature, Life on Earth. Today, we're going to discuss an interesting development in the universe story, life. Because we really only know about life on planet Earth, even though it seems likely that life, even if only of some simple unintelligent sort, like Carl, exists elsewhere in the universe, our exploration of what life is limited to this sample. That's why this is primarily a video about life on Earth. There are limitations about what we could say about the shape that life might take elsewhere. No, Carl, I don't think they care about your video about your alien abduction. 100,000 views in the first hour? Come on, man! In this video, we're going to offer a definition, note, not the definition, of life. Next, drawing on this definition, we'll discuss how Earth was a Goldilocks environment for life to emerge. At first, the difference between living and non-living things might seem obvious to us. That cat's alive, that rock isn't. But there are some gray areas that cause debate. One example is viruses. Viruses have certain lifelike qualities, but they have other qualities that fall short of many definitions of life, at least under certain conditions. So, what is life? Again, we can look at a definition here. Depending on where you look, you'll find different lists of the necessary characteristics of life. Here, we're going to list 7. 1. Cellular order and structure. 2. Reproductive capacity. 3. Growth and development. 4. Metabolic processes. 5. Response to stimuli. 6. Homeostasis. And 7. Adaptation. Let's try to get a better understanding of each of these qualities. Cell theory suggests that every organism that has ever lived on this planet was made up of one or more cells. In this theory, a cell is the basic unit of life, the smallest entity we know capable of meeting all the 7 criteria we just listed. Evidence suggests that all cells that have ever lived share a few things in common. First, they have a plasma membrane. Insane in the membrane, insane in the brain. Do you remember Cypress Hill, Carl? No? Man, am I old. Which is an outer layer made of molecules such as phospholipids that keeps the cell contained and separated from its environment. Second, cells have a cytoplasm, or an inner goo. That is a biologically technical term, Carl. Inner goo. In which their components do their thing. Third, cells contain genetic material. Today, all living cells produce DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, and RNA, ribonucleic acid. We'll talk about these molecules in more detail in future videos. In essence, DNA encodes genetic information in cells. And, as we'll see, information is essential to life. Finally, all cells have ribosomes, which are molecular machines, or a collection of molecules that respond to stimuli and perform certain tasks, that produce proteins inside cells. There are differences in cells as well. One of the main differences in cells is between prokaryote and eukaryote cells. We're going to explore this difference in detail in the next video. For now, I'll just point out that prokaryote cells don't have a nucleus or other membrane-bound organelles. Small structures in the cell that are bound by their own membranes. Prokaryote life forms, such as bacteria and archaea, are single-celled organisms. Eukaryote cells, on the other hand, have a well-defined nucleus and various membrane-bound organelles. This structure allows eukaryote cells to perform complex tasks. It also allowed eukaryotes to evolve into multicellular life forms. You and I have eukaryote cells, and we're part of the biological domain, eukarya. Again, more on that in the next video. To say that life can reproduce is to say that a living organism can produce another genetic version of itself through asexual reproduction, or a genetic combination of itself and another parent organism through sexual reproduction. Single-celled organisms replicate their DNA and split. creating a copy of themselves through asexual reproduction. Some multicellular organisms can reproduce through asexual means as well. For example, when potatoes, you can boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew, Carl, produce buds from which new potatoes grow. Other multicellular organisms reproduce sexually, which occurs when two parent organisms contribute genetic material through germ cells while listening to Barry White or Marvin Gaye. I've been feeling sad. No, you're right. I'm sorry. That's inappropriate. I'm sorry. Totally inappropriate. The offspring possesses only half of each parent organism's genetic material. The genetic material inside organisms instructs constituent parts how to function, allowing the organism as a whole to experience growth and development. In multicellular organisms such as mammals, this leads to some fascinating things. Everybody watching this video started off as a single cell, a zygote, that divided into a cluster of cells called a blastocyst. The outer cells of this cluster became the placenta, but all of the inner cells, between 50 and 150, were what we call pluripotent embryonic stem cells, because they can develop into any type of bodily cell: heart, brain, lung, liver, bone, and so on. How do these cells know how to develop such that we become these bodies? From the time we're a single-celled organism, we contain an entire human genome, a human genetic code, that directs this development in conjunction with environmental factors. This is just one example, of course. Growth and development occur throughout the lifespan of an organism, all directed by genetic code in conjunction with environmental factors. Organisms get fuel to grow and develop through metabolic processes. Metabolism refers to chemical reactions in the body that provide energy for various tasks, either by breaking down molecules, which is referred to as catabolism, or building up molecules, which is referred to as anabolism. Anabolic reactions include DNA replication as well as protein synthesis. I'm going to resist the temptation to explore how DNA, RNA, and ribosomes work together to produce proteins, even though it's freaking awesome. If you want your mind blown, check out the links in the description. Catabolic reactions include cellular respiration, which generates adenosine triphosphate, ATP, the molecule that distributes energy to the cell, through the processing of food molecules. Glucose from what you've eaten, if you're of the animal persuasion, and glucose created from photosynthesis, if you're of the I don't horrifically survive by eating insects plant persuasion. Feed me, Seymour! No. Man, I'm old. Another catabolic reaction is protein digestion. This happens when proteins that animals consume are broken down into amino acids. Living organisms need to be able to react to their surroundings, so the basic ability to respond to stimuli is essential for survival. This allows both single-celled organisms and more complex organisms to seek out favorable conditions. For example, when plants bend toward sunlight, and avoid noxious or harmful conditions. For example, when bacteria enact defenses when certain receptors are triggered, signaling danger. As living organisms detect shifts in their surroundings, they seek to maintain an internal regularity that permits them to function. Biologists call this homeostasis. Regulation of temperature and blood sugar are examples of this. So are the experiences of hunger and thirst. In single-celled organisms, homeostasis looks like the regulation of molecules entering and exiting the cell. In short, homeostasis is about keeping things internally stable in an unstable, changing external environment. Finally, living organisms adapt to their environments. Because this characteristic of life is so closely related to evolution, I'm going to discuss it in detail in a later video. For now, I'll just note that homeostasis doesn't mean that organisms can't or don't change. They do. Life is therefore a balance between internal consistency amidst external changing environments, homeostasis, and adjusting to environments to be able to navigate them better, adaptation. Let me make one final point before moving on. This entire discussion of life is intricately connected to everything we've discussed in these videos up to this point. Amino acid, DNA, and the nucleotides that make up DNA are all molecules, collections of atoms bound together through various chemical processes, like the ones we discussed in the last episode. The metabolic processes of living organisms are all chemical reactions involving valence electrons, and all of this is governed by the electromagnetic force. And, of course, the nuclei of the atoms that make up the molecules we're discussing have neutrons and protons, which contain quarks and gluons, all held together by the strong nuclear force. And the heavier elements involved and essential to these chemical processes, for example carbon, were produced in stars that formed by gravity collapsing solar nebulae until nuclear fusion occurred. And, as a reminder, nuclear fusion is only possible because of the weak nuclear force. In short, everything that makes organisms alive is connected to the various chapters of the universe story up to this point. It's all connected. Entangled. Okay, this is at least one way of understanding what life is. Now to a question. Why Earth? How do we get from quarks to atoms to stars to heavier elements to molecules to planets to life on this particular planet? For life to emerge, it seems that you need some really complicated and intricate chemistry happening. You need organic molecules, which are the building blocks for life, in order for life to be able to form. These include proteins, which are crucial to multiple cellular functions, carbohydrates, which are essential for providing energy to cells, lipids, which are necessary for the formation of cell membranes. They're also very good at energy storage, and nucleic acids, which carry the genetic information of organisms. To get these intricate molecules, you need the right conditions for complex chemistry to occur. For example, you need monomers, such as amino acids, to form into much longer polymers, such as proteins. Then, you need just the right conditions for all of these organic molecules to come together and form a living organism. Scientists can't provide a full answer about how this happened on Earth. While scientists have been able to replicate the formation of organic molecules such as amino acids, most famously in the Miller-Urey experiment, no experiment in the history of science has ever replicated the origin of life. However, physicists, geologists, chemists, and biologists can provide really helpful information about how and why this might have happened on Earth. Let's take a brief look at a few important points. First, Earth has Goldilocks conditions for the emergence of life. First, Earth is the right distance from the Sun for a temperature that allows chemistry to occur. Chemistry requires a narrow range of low temperatures. Too close to a star, you're not going to get any chemical reactions. But in the dead of space, you're going to have the same problem. Earth is in the sweet spot. Second, Earth has liquid water. Earth's water either came from its own rock formations, or was introduced by icy asteroids and comets, or perhaps a combination of the two. Regardless, Earth's Goldilocks temperature allows for its water to be liquid, and liquid water helps facilitate complex chemistry. Solids tend to lock atoms in place. Gases let atoms fly by each other too quickly, but water lets atoms dance with each other, providing a lot of opportunities for valence electrons to jump around. Third, Earth has a good diversity of elements. Recall that during an earlier period of the solar system's formation, solar wind caused a lot of hydrogen and helium to move to an outer region of the solar system, leaving a rich range of elements in the inner region. So again, on Earth, there's a lot of Legos to build some complex structures. A second important reason life was able to emerge on Earth relates to Earth's formation. Earth formed in such a way as to create conditions conducive to the emergence of life. Without going into too much detail, here's a few points to consider. First, during the Earth's earliest eon, the Hadean, or literally hellish eon, the planet heated as it was bombarded by constant collisions. The planet underwent a process referred to as differentiation, in which elements separated into different layers. Heavier elements, such as iron and nickel, mostly sank to the center, forming a metallic core. The inner core is solid, but the outer core is liquid, and as the liquid outer core moves, it generates a magnetic field around the Earth. This field protects our planet from the sun's solar wind and radiation. In short, no magnetic field, no life as we know it. Second, the process of differentiation also produces Earth's mantle, a mostly solid 1,800 mile, or 2,900 kilometer, mass of rock and magma. The upper part of the mantle is called the asthenosphere. It's semi-molten, but because of convection currents, that is, currents created by heat, driven by the temperature of Earth's interior, it moves. As we'll see, this movement is important. The third layer of the Earth is referred to as the crust. It comes in two general flavors, oceanic crust and continental crust. But the crust and the mantle share a border area called the lithosphere. I miss the simple terms like up and down quark, which is made of large fractured plates that float on the moving asthenosphere. These are the tectonic plates, and the asthenosphere causes them to move about. This movement causes mountains to form, and it contributes to volcanic activity. This geological makeup of the Earth was essential to the formation of Earth's fourth layer, the atmosphere, primarily from gases being released through volcanic activity spewing up from the mantle. Earth's atmosphere has changed over time, more on that later, but the presence of an atmosphere was essential to the emergence of life. This means that Earth's geological structure was essential to the emergence of life. Third, the geological structure of Earth helps to regulate Earth's temperature through, for example, the long carbon cycle. CO2, or carbon dioxide, is a greenhouse gas, which means it traps heat from the sun on the Earth, causing it to heat up. Too much of a greenhouse effect, and the planet is in trouble, at least with regard to life. A runaway greenhouse effect is why Venus is the hottest planet in the solar system, even though it's only second closest to the sun. Through the long carbon cycle, carbon can be removed from the atmosphere and deposited into sedimentary rocks in the ocean. Then, through a process called subduction, tectonic plates can redeposit this carbon into the mantle. Carbon can then re-enter Earth's atmosphere through volcanic activity, and Earth has natural mechanisms that trigger carbon removal and carbon replacement in the atmosphere. But it's important to remember that this cycle is a long cycle. It takes millions upon millions of years to function. So human interference with it and the exacerbation of release of carbon into the atmosphere is a huge problem. As a side note, when life arrives on the scene, it contributes to the development and regulation of Earth's atmosphere through various means, including the short carbon cycle. More on that in the next video. Fourth, the geological structure of the Earth, as well as its atmosphere, contributed something else of vital importance to the emergence of life. Flows of free energy. Free energy refers to energy that can do work. Particular tasks, for example chemical reactions, require a certain threshold of free energy in order to be completed. This is called activation energy. As an example, if wind is blowing, that's an example of free kinetic energy, because it's moving air, kinetic, that can do work, free energy. If that wind encounters a windmill, there's a certain amount of free energy required to move the blades of that windmill. That amount is the activation energy. And that's what windmills and wind turbines do. They convert the kinetic free energy of wind into some other kind of usable energy. In terms of the activation energy required for life to emerge on Earth, there's a few sources of free energy that are contenders. Earth's early atmosphere could produce lightning. The sun was producing ultraviolet radiation. Earth's interior was producing volcanic activity and hydrothermal vents in the ocean. These sources of free energy could have provided the activation energy for the emergence of life. When you look at all these pieces together, what emerges? Earth had just the right conditions for complex chemistry to occur, allowing for the development of organic molecules, the building blocks of life. These molecules were protected by Earth's magnetic field and its atmosphere. At some point, at some location, the most common explanation now seems to be hydrothermal vents in the ocean, free energy activated the chemical process that caused the first living organism to emerge. A single structured cell. This living organism could metabolize food sources. It could respond to its environment and react to ensure homeostasis. It could reproduce, and it could adapt. In short, it could survive and replicate itself. The survival, replication, and adaptation of these first organisms is how we're here today. So pour one out for the first prokaryotes, Carl. They are heroes in this story, at least from our perspective. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Until next time, farewell.